Now, McDonald's has sacked its chief executive after he had a relationship with an employee. The firm says Steve Easterbrook broke its rules, although the partnership was consensual. On 5 Live's Your Call this morning, Nikki heard from people with first-hand experience of workplace romances. Not all of them good.
I did have a relationship with a member of staff who was my subordinate, if you like, and when that relationship ended, the task of managing that person became more and more awkward, and she put in a complaint. Basically, the complaint was that I was bullying and harassing her. And ultimately, over 12 months, it meant that I was put in a situation where I lost my job.
When I started seeing him, there were loads of people saying, oh, this is not a nice manager. Oh, he said this to me. And I was like, yeah, I know, I understand. But I would not tell anyone that I'm dating this person because that will be something wrong.
Would you tell him what people were saying about him?
No.
In a large organisation, they were comfortable that if we declared it, we both spoke to our kind of line managers, and we've done projects where we've worked together and where we've worked separately, and he's a few levels above me, but when we've declared it, it's been no issue.
So what is a sensible approach? Ban relationships, don't ban them? Let's speak to Kate McCarthy-Booth, who's from McCarthy Recruitment, which doesn't allow workplace relationships. Kate, is that for the reason, like we heard the first contributor there, talking about when those relationships break down, it's very difficult within the workplace?
Absolutely. And I think, look, we're a smaller business, so there's around about 30 employees and we're all in one unit. And even actually when the relationship's going well, it might not go well on a particular day. Someone has an argument, there can be issues. And we just made a decision over some time that actually that doesn't work for us as an organisation. And actually, look, I also believe that you can't dictate who you fall in love with. So I'm not saying that might not happen. You might
That's
not meet
the problem,
somebody.
isn't it? That is the problem.
It is, and I think you spend a lot of time at work, so a lot of people meet their partners at work. So for us, it's not necessarily about saying it's not allowed. You've got to be open and honest with it. So I think one of your callers also talked about, look, we were open about it. So it's also about not hiding it, because I think there's a lot of this is actually about trust and breakdown of trust and the HR nightmare that can ensue if people aren't aware of it. You know, if you're managing that person and then you're within a team, the dynamic of that changes. It can be really difficult to manage.
Clearly, we don't know, in the case of McDonald's and Steve Easterbrook, who the person was who was having a relationship and what level they were in the organisation. And I guess maybe that plays a part, does it, as to whether they work directly in a team together, if one is very senior, one is very junior. I mean, does that all play into your policy on whether to have those relationships?
It does, although it's not. Look, I mean, that's the reason behind it. You can't really kind of put that into a policy because it can really overcomplicate something. But ultimately, you know, I also work for a big supermarket where lots of people were married to each other within that supermarket, but they were always in different stores. So they were never being directly managed by somebody they were in a relationship with. The policy there was that you were open and honest about it, and then you would be moved to a different store. But they were big enough that they were able to do that. We're not able to do that. And when it has happened, there tends to be a breakdown or a problem, and then you tend to lose a member of staff. And for me, that's the issue. It's the consequence when it doesn't work.
Can't people be professional, though? I mean, we all have our own issues going on in life, don't we? But we don't bring them to work. So can't people, even if they're in a relationship, be professional?
Well, you would hope so. But look, the reality also is that not everybody is. You know, you heard this morning that caller talk about then somebody claimed, you know, sexual harassment. That happens quite a lot, I do believe. I've heard that on a number of times. And how do you deal with that? What is consensual? You know, it can become overly complicated. And these are all things when you try to run a business that become issues that you could do without. But I also know that, you know, people have met people within my workplace and then they've gone on to marry them and they're very happy. But, you know, we talked about it and one of those people decided that actually they didn't want to work with them anyway and they left. We organised it that they weren't in the same team. You know, I'm very glad they met each other and that I was part of that, and they've got 2 lovely children now. But even them admitted that it didn't work because I can't really move them to another building or another store or another office, and that's the difficulty. I think if it's managed properly and you're a big enough organisation, I think it'd be naive to say you cannot have a relationship, but I think it's important to say that if you are having a relationship that you're open and honest about it and there are some clear, lines.
Let me read this texter to you, because it's literally just come in, this text. It says, it's absolutely ridiculous what I'm hearing here. Businesses have no rights at all to tell people whether they can have a relationship with somebody else or not. This is about human rights. We love who we want. I guess that's the difficulty, isn't it? If you fall in love with somebody, you're asking someone to...
agree with that.
You're kind of asking someone to choose between who they love and their career.
Yeah, and I look, ours isn't a written policy. It's a kind of, let's all be sensible about this policy. So if somebody, in that situation where it has happened, they came and talked about it and they were open and we worked a way around it. But ultimately, I've always found that somebody ends up leaving. I'd love it if that didn't happen, but ultimately we're a small team. And then, you've got one person upset about if they treated that person differently because they're, or I don't feel comfortable talking about that person anymore. If I have a problem, how do I go to my line manager when they're having a relationship with them? It's really complicated. And I think it's about managing it sensibly, having professional conversations. It's not about dictating who you can and can't fall in love with, because I totally agree with that text, actually. But then also when I'm running a business, I have to have a business head on and a fairness head.
Of course.
So it's also about how you treat your people. And I hope that we've always done it in a real professional way. The only time when I've been upset about it or it's gone down a disciplinary line, and it has done, is when it's been hidden, because that's a breakdown of trust.
Sure.
Okay. And that's a different scenario.
Yeah, I can understand that. Kate, thank you for your time today. Really interesting to speak to you.
Problem.
Kate McCarthy-Booth there from McCarthy Recruitment. Interested to get your thoughts on this, your experiences. Has it been a problem at work? I kind of look around at the BBC and there's quite a lot of people who meet their partners at work, don't they? So it could be...